Miami, and then Washington. That will conclude the first round. But Dallas, not as surprising a pick as maybe the first two ones last year when they went for Jeff Rohr, and before that Rod Hill. They went for Jeffcoat, nearly 6'5", out of Arizona State. This is a young man who is a battler, and they have a lot of battlers at ASU.
He's a man also that has exceptional quickness for his size. He's going to add to the Dallas pass rush, and he has the youth and the quickness. Harvey Martin's getting long years. Tootal's a little long years also, and this is an enthusiastic, great football player.
Scouts like his lateral mobility. Could play maybe the end of the 3-4 or the tackle in a 4-3 defense, and great upper body strength. You see it again on a 5-0 scale. 5.0 being your top grade, a 4.7, 3 4.7s and a 4.6. He's knocking a little bit on the pass rush, but an 18.7 overall grade for Dallas #1 selection, Jim Jeffcoat.
You know, a lot of people may be surprised, Bob, that the first guy off that very, very tough Arizona State defense was not Vernon Maxwell, the linebacker, was not Michael Richardson, the safety, that it is Jeffcoat. A lot of people thought he would be the third of those three, but Bud, you mentioned before during one of our breaks that you think he fundamentally is just a very strong player. And Martin and Tootal are getting up in years, and Dallas has to start filling in along the ranks. Not for next year right away, but in the next couple.
It's the Dallas principle. Be ready.
He may play under more control than some of the other people coming out of ASU this year, which might be another reason that Dallas went for him as well. Jets then had things hopping in New York City as they went for a sleeper, as we say on draft day. Cal Davis quarterback Ken O'Brien, 6'5", 6'4", 212 pounds, 5 flat in the 40-yard dash. He comes out of the same school that Mike Morawski, the backup man at Atlanta, does. But there are varying reports, Chris. You're close to the Jets situation. You can get, some people call him a sleeper. Other people say he's not a first-round selection. So now the jury is going to be out on this one.
Well, the Jets pretty much, you thought they would go with the best athlete available. However, a lot had been written that they wanted a backup quarterback, Richard Todd, 30. So we're looking down the line 2 or 3 years that they wanted somebody other than perhaps Pat Ryan to step into the breach. They obviously didn't like Marino. I got that feeling this past week. And in O'Brien, a couple people that I have talked to both liked him very much as a sleeper. You can talk about the knocks a little bit, Bob, but he has a definite pro arm, and what they like about him is his ability to read defense. And you see what the Jets can do that maybe Kansas City and New England couldn't do when choosing a Blackledge or an Eason, is he can have him sit 3 or 4 years and just learn everything like Hogeboom has done with Dallas. Looks like he is ready to step in. It's not like, okay, we better educate him and get him in the lineup in our first or second year. They've got plenty of time with him behind Richard Todd.
And they probably butter the one team of any team in this draft that has no pressing need at any particular position. They are building depth, more so probably in the eyes of many people than any other National Football League team, the Jets.
And it's kind of a comfortable thing if you're responsible for their draft to not have to have a #1 pick tested for 3 or 4 years.
A couple of years on the headsets with the clipboard, hold the extra points, and then be a factor, of course.
Right.
We are waiting for the Bengals to make their selection, but let's look a little bit ahead of the Bengals, because following Cincinnati's pick, it'll be the Raiders. Now, there's been speculation. What will the L.A. Raiders do? Tom Flores, a few thoughts about his shopping list on this draft day, 1983.
We're always looking for quality players. We're not so much interested in position as we are quality. If we see there's a great player and someone that could help us in a position that we need help, we're going to take that great player instead.
Take a great player, best player available. That's always the great phrase of draft day. Will we see any trades in round 1? We have not to date. San Diego did not make a deal. Again, to update you on John Elway, the Colts took him. There will be a press conference, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern time, we understand, the San Jose area, at which time John may, to the public, address the question, the Colts or the Yankees. We have not had a trade. Will the Raiders try? Can the Raiders make a deal? Can they make a deal at this point with Baltimore?
Well, I think anybody can make a deal, and this is sort of like the New York Stock Exchange. They're trading all the time, and the phones are ringing. I'm sure of that.
But whether there's a commodity to change teams, I think that might be another consideration at this point, though. Whether at this point in the first round there's any coin on the table for the Raiders to put out there and say, I'll see you.
I don't think so. We talked before that they were trying to trade up with teams like the Bears to get several other picks to at least appease Baltimore. As we understand from Greg Wyatt, recently, the last hour, Cush has talked again to the Elway folks. I know, Bud, you say you'd be very, very surprised to see him play baseball, even though our early indications today, now that Baltimore has drafted John Elway, is that he will play with the Yankees. I'd be surprised to see him play baseball, too. He can be the best in football. In baseball, he can be a starter and fairly productive.
Well, I think that the Raiders could certainly use another backup quarterback. Plunkett has been around a long time. He's been a great player, but he's had his ups and downs, and somebody new that could really make it happen for him, be an invaluable asset.
Well, we may learn a great deal more about that situation in about, Mickey's hands tell us, about 3 hours from now. So that'll be in San Jose, California. Actually, 6 hours from now, it'll be Pacific time. The Bengals are up. Let's see exactly what's happening at the New York Sheraton. George Grant is there.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're still sitting and waiting on the Cincinnati Bengals, who finished 7-2 last year and are hoping for even better in 1983 and the 83-84 season. They're waiting for their first pick in the 1983 collegiate draft from the New York Sheraton. Paul Brown, Forrest Gregg, Hank Bulla and company trying to put together their thoughts at this point. And when we look at the O'Brien situation, not a real surprise, maybe a surprise that the Jets took him, but not a surprise in terms of his abilities.
Well, I heard interesting things from the 49ers about him. You know, Bill Walsh's son goes to UC Davis, and he said every now and then Bill would go down and watch his son play, and every time he came back, he would rave about the quarterback, O'Brien. And I think they were looking at him in a lower round. And maybe the Jets knew that, and they figured that's the only way they could get him.
Cincinnati
Here's
Bengals.
Don Weiss.
First round choice, center Dave Remington, Nebraska. Los Angeles Raiders are up.
Pete Brown told me no Remington.
Okay, the Raiders are up next. The Bengals take Dave Remington, the center of Nebraska, the man who has been regarded as the foremost offensive lineman in the nation the last couple of years. If there was one rap on him, it was that he's only played center, and some of these other fine athletes that have been tabbed already in the first round could play guard, tackle, or whatever, but Remington's a good one.
Well, I was just showing Howard my notes here. I talked to their organization, and they said number 1, Leonard Smith. Number 2, Blackledge. 3, Marino. Joey Browner. Definitely not Remington.
Close.
Yeah, that shows what I know.
It shows that you never know what to believe is what it shows. It's
right.
That just shows about the draft. It's become a big guessing game, obviously. But of course, to the personnel guys, it's their livelihood, and a lot of them are just a little freer with the information. Some people just try to throw you off the track.
Some of us won't forget.
It's a question of one-upmanship, too. Jimmy the Greek looks on from CBS Sports as we put the picture together for the 1983 collegiate draft. We'll be back with more after these messages. Los Angeles Raiders in their selection here in the first round of the National Football League collegiate draft. Dave Remington has just been tabbed by the Cincinnati Bengals, their first pick of this draft. When you look at the Raiders in their history, this is a team that won the 1976 title through the draft, but then won the 80 title without a first-round pick. Let's evaluate them.
The Los Angeles Raiders will have the 26th pick in this year's NFL draft. The Raiders are the only team in the league to build a Super Bowl champion via the draft in 1976 and then turn around and disdain the same building tool. Oakland did not exercise a first-round draft pick from 1976 through 1979 and utilized the entire player personnel process to build another championship winner. The 1980 team had a total of 14 new faces. Most were acquired via trades and signed as free agents. It was a remarkable feat for a team in distinct transition, as indicated by the fact that the club suffered through its first losing campaign since the arrival of Al Davis and thereby missed the playoffs for the third time in the last 4 years. Then the club turns around, returns to the draft, and has remarkable success, utilizing the loftiest drafting position since they started the common draft in 1967. The Raiders secured the services of Heisman Trophy winner and eventual Rookie of the Year Marcus Allen. He joined forces with the club's pair of 1981 first-round picks, Kurt Marsh and Ted Watts. Then, in the last 3 years, the Raiders have added a total of 5 starters acquired in the premium rounds. The most prominent drafting error in the premium rounds was Ted McKnight, who was cut after being chosen in the second round in 1977. He went on to enjoy good success with the Chiefs before ruining a knee and winding up in Buffalo. Of the 7 former Raiders starting around the rest of the league, the only player who could start for this year's team is San Diego's Rolf Bernerska. So far as the primary needs of the Raiders going into the 1983 NFL draft, you have to look at it this way. Injuries and aging personnel in several areas will see the Raiders direct their drafting efforts toward fortifying their linebacking core, the club's pass rush, as well as obtaining a quality wide receiver prospect with the speed that Al Davis is so fond of. The Los Angeles Raiders going into the 1983 draft.
Thank you very much, David Sullivan. Hendricks, 36 years of age. The Twos is 33, had some injuries. Will they go for the pass rush help? We'll find out. They're on the phone taking a look now. We're waiting on the Raiders pick. Already selected, the Cincinnati Bengals have just taken Dave Remington, the fine center out of Nebraska. Let's go back to Bob and company and find out how he grades out. Bob?
It's no secret, George, Dave Remington grades out by far as the best center. As you mentioned earlier, you alluded to the fact, though, he is a pure center. He owns the Outland Trophy, but he goes now to Cincinnati in round 1, 6'3", 290 pounds.
Well, people should never overlook the value of a center. Every play begins when he hands the ball to the quarterback, and if he can control a nose man playing opposite him, as you can see Remington do, he's so big, so strong, so fast off the ball, you have the basic ingredient to begin every offensive play. You take another look at him here, and he just dominates. He's a very experienced pass protector, and another thing that makes him a valuable asset is his ability to be part of an organization, and Nebraska is one of the great football organizations in the collegiate ranks.
Well, he won the Outland, he won the Lombardi, and in the scouting report we had a chance to grade him out. Strength was a perfect grade, and his run blocking was a perfect grade, and pass blocking was his lowest at 4.6. But right now, Remington going to Cincinnati, and the Bengals making a center their first-round selection.
I wonder if Paul Brown and company have a sense of deja vu here. When they were an expansion franchise in the late 60s in the AFL, the first pick of the draft, their first pick overall was Bob Johnson, center. He played for 10, 12 years. Blair Bush has played there the last few years. But it's not bad if they project Remington for another 10 to 15 years, if they can have 3 guys playing center for a quarter of a century. And that may be what happens. So maybe deja vu here. You know, Remington may still have been the best lineman, even though Hinton went first, 4th overall in the draft at Denver. But the way the pro game has gone these days, it's more a tackle bookend-oriented thing. So Remington may have graded out highest, but no surprise that he went below several of the tackles.
We are standing by to see what the Raiders do. They are the 3rd from last selection in this, the first round. Miami will follow the Raiders and then Washington. But then again, picking early in the 2nd round will be the Rams. Let's get out to Los Angeles. Greg Wyatt standing by with Rich Roberts of the Los Angeles Times. Greg?
Bob, the sun is up here in Southern California, and I guess you could say the guy in the driver's seat here at the Rams camp is Rich Roberts of the LA Times. And, of course, the folks across town have the next pick. Your thoughts on this whole Elway situation? The one word that seems to be cropping up in both Northern California and here in Southern California is greed, that Baltimore just wanted simply too much.
Well, I don't know. I know the Raiders are making all kinds of moves the last few days trying to work their way into a position to draft Elway, and I think it might have concerned the people here at Rams Park a little bit too that their number 2 pick for Dickerson was going to be upstaged. Right now it doesn't appear that's going to happen, but who knows. Of course, any considerations for draft picks involved now would seem to be gone by the boards. So any deal for Elway now would have to involve live bodies or whatever else might be in the works. It's just hard to say. It's kind of bewildering that Baltimore would sign him or would draft him without having him signed or some commitment from him, though.
Of course, the only other team here in Southern California which could possibly make a deal is San Diego, and they have obviously helped where they really need it, and that's on defense.
Oh, yeah. I think if they have Fouts back now, as the word is out that they have come to some agreement there, that they've helped themselves much more than they would by getting Elway, I think, with Billy Ray Smith and some of the others they've got.
There is one name mentioned, and that's Henry Ellard, from wide receiver from Fresno State, who could conceivably be the Raiders' pick. Obviously, their receivers getting just a little bit older, so it's going to be interesting. We only have a few short minutes to wait, and now let's get back to Bob Lee and Chris Berman.
Looks like they've called for the left-hander. He's coming in from the bullpen in the cart. Thank you, Greg Wyatt. Less than 5 minutes now for the Raiders to make their selection in the first round. And there, as you've just joined, has been no trading at all today in the first round so far. John Elway has been selected by Baltimore. We have had 25 selections so far in this draft, and we were just looking up and down our notes. And whereas in past years it might have flip-flopped, last year not certainly one of those years, but only 8 of the 25 selected so far, Bud, have been defensive players. We've been saying it's an offensive draft, and this has been borne out time and time again. We've had 4 or 5 defensive backs so far, and we understand the Raiders are about to pick, so just a quick thought on the defensive lack in this draft?
Well, there's always that premium on can we move the football, because that's the glamour part of the game. And you have 5 quarterbacks picked and 5 wide receivers picked. And that tells you something about what teams are looking for.
And Remington, by being picked 25th, even though he's an excellent lineman, it cost him a little bit of money not going in the top 10.
It may cost him a little bit of money, Bob, but he's also going to a team that can get him right in the Super Bowl, or at least along the line in the AFC playoffs. So he may get that money right back by going to an established winner.
Very possibly. The Raiders have counted it down to the 4-minute mark on the large timepiece in the main ballroom of the Sheraton. It'll be the Raiders, Miami, and Washington to end the first round. And it's gone pretty much according to schedule. We've just passed the 3-hour mark. George Grant standing by in New York City. George?
Thank you, gentlemen. We're waiting on the Raiders 3 minutes and change as they are contemplating their first-round pick in this National Football League draft. It's football today, but don't forget, Saturday, May the 7th, live, beginning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time. It's the Horsies, join Byron Williams, Del Hancock, and Lou Palmer for 5.5 hours of coverage on all 7 pre-races. We covered pre-Kentucky Derby from Churchill Downs. You can see it right here on your source for sports, leading up to the 109th Run for the Roses. SportsCenter Plus, of course, will feature Derby history and profiles during the day. And don't forget, Sharon Smith on our Horse Racing Weekly will be profiling the Derby previews as well, as we continue to keep you up to date on horse racing on your source for sports. That's 11 a.m. pre-Kentucky Derby Day. That's live Saturday, May the 7th. We're waiting on the Raiders right now, the Los Angeles Raiders, and Zim, it appears that at this point in time, I don't know whether the concept of a trade is still very much alive, but still very much alive is the number of options that the Raiders would have.
Well, the only thing I could see that would interest Baltimore would be 1 and a 2 this year, 1 or another 1 if they should somehow manage to trade to get a pair of 1s next year, and then Baltimore would say, well, we got what we wanted, we just have to wait a year. But I don't know. I'm sort of giving up on that. I see the Raiders picked it. Well, I'm just looking at the names that I had penciled in for them. I had them projected to pick Remington. I think they're interested in Mosbar, too. They want good, sturdy linemen. Al Davis loves SC players, as you know. I think they like Achika, another Trojan. Another Trojan. The other people that they liked are gone. I've heard some people say they're interested in Marino. He would be a reclamation project, which Al thrives on. As you know, the coach is a former quarterback. Maybe they feel that Marino would be a guy. Then they'd have 2 young quarterbacks. Wilson and Marino. Who's to say in 2 years, 3 years would be better?
Let's talk a little bit about the Marino situation. We can date back in our coverage of college football and also right through to the Senior Bowl in Alabama, and a lot of the scouts felt that Dan Marino did not progress as much as a quarterback should progress, having played for a prominent program like Pittsburgh for 4 years. They said he was making some mistakes that he would make as a sophomore in his senior year. What did you hear around the league, Howard?
Well, pretty much the same things. His senior year certainly was not a good year for the whole team. So there still were supposedly some scouts who felt that some of his receivers gave up on him. You know about the Tim Lewis situation where he criticized some of the wide receivers near the end of the season. So there was the wonder of whether it was all Marino's fault or whether just the whole team sort of fell down on him. So,
well, obviously, a lot of scouts think that he's flawed because he's not been drafted. Bobby Beathard told me that they didn't even think he threw that well. He said he pushes it rather than looks it.
And I think a wide receiver might be a chance for the Raiders, either Henry Ellard or Glenn Young.
Okay, here's the commissioner with the Raiders selection on the first round.
He's checking the pronunciation.
Is he checking a trade or pronunciation?
He's checking something.
Maybe he just doesn't want to make Al's pick.
Maybe it's John Elway, like you said earlier.
Los Angeles Raiders, first round selection. Tackle, Don Mosbar, USC. Next up, Miami Dolphins.
As expected, they do go to the Trojans, and they do go to the line. They go to the offensive tackle, not possibly the defensive help that they were looking for. And Mosbar, regarded by some as clearly a first-rounder, but regarded by others as possibly maybe a second or third rounder.
Well, I think the consensus on him was that he fell exactly where people thought he would, as the 4th best offensive lineman and low first round. I think that was chalk.
Okay, Don Mosbar selected by the LA Raiders in the first round. As we continue our coverage of the National Football League draft, we'll be back with more. We're holding on the next pick from the New York Sheriff.
On ESPN, we continue with live coverage from Los Angeles, California, from the Sheraton Ballroom in New York City, from the ESPN Sports Center, and also from Lord Jim's in Hawthorne, New Jersey, where Leandro Riley is on hand with Tommy Vigorito. But Dolphins are next up. Let's hear about that pick.
I'm back with Tommy Vigorito here at Lord Jim's in Hawthorne, New Jersey, and he's with the Miami Dolphins, and I'm going to put you on the spot. Why don't you give us a scouting report? This is an inside report on the Miami Dolphins.
Well, I think our biggest asset is the fact that if you take Kuchenberg and Vernon Hurd out of our lineup, we are the youngest team in the NFL. And having the experience of going to the Super Bowl last year, and everybody coming back this year and being so young, you know, we got nowhere to go but up. And hopefully that's what will happen. Next year we'll win it.
All right, I don't think I can ask you how can you get experience in the draft. These guys are younger than you are. But what should the Dolphins go for in this draft?
I think the fact that we brought Vern out of retirement last year, they're not going to want to do that again because he said he's refused to come off his farm again this year. So I think we're going to go after defensive linemen if there's any quality defensive linemen around at the time. And if we don't get a defensive lineman, we'll probably go to the defensive secondary for help. Those will probably our two most important factors where we need more backup help right now than we do starters.
All right, thank you very much, Tommy Vigorito. Comments on the defense for the Dolphins. Gentlemen?
All right, so a good look at what Miami might be doing. They, in effect, though, will have two #1 selections because David Overstreet has come back from Canada, leaving the debacle of the Montreal Alouettes. So, in essence, with Overstreet coming to camp this July, they'll have two #1s. Right. And you can't quibble with something like that because Pittsburgh will be in the same situation with Keith Gary having come back from Canada at the same time.
I would guess what Vigorito said is very accurate.
All righty, and plus, you look at Miami over the years, having had 4 different player personnel men. You had Don Shula, the Rock of Gibraltar, more than a coach, just about club president when you think about it.
Well, the best coach around, really, and I'm sorry that several of the other good ones around, but Shula's the best. I think that if we're to believe what Vigorito says, and of course, it's not like Don called up Tommy this morning and told him what to say, Mike Charles of Syracuse may be a good guess here. Perhaps a cornerback, but I think the guys that might have been around for the first-round picks are gone. A sleeper in the cornerback area, Darrell Green, Texas A&I, if they want a burner. But Miami's starting defensive backfield is pretty strong, Bob.
All right, what about John Tice? Need for a tight end out of Maryland. We're talking about that before the Dolphins. Their selection in New York City, they will be making selection number 27 with Washington to follow as we conclude round 1. But the Dolphins about to make their selection right now.
Dolphins, first-round selection. The Dolphins select quarterback Dan Marino of Pittsburgh. Next up, the Super Bowl champion Washington Redskins.
That was Commissioner Pete Rozelle just about a minute and a half ago as he made the selection announcement for the selection of Danny Marino.
I don't understand it. Number one, I don't know who is going to work with him down there. Where is the great quarterback coaching genius on the Dolphins? I know Arne Sparger is a great defensive coach. I don't see where he's going to get this great coaching that's going to overcome the problems he's had. I mean, strictly long-range projection down the line, and I think they need help in other directions. Maybe they felt that what they wanted wasn't there and they couldn't get that help, but I really don't understand.
You wouldn't label him as a classic Don Shula kind of quarterback either.
No, and that's true. But again, they got to the Super Bowl with a David Woodley at quarterback, and they must figure that they can certainly, if they can get it out of David Woodley, you got to figure they think they can get it out of Dan Marino.
Well, I don't know what is a classic Shula quarterback. He's only had one really great quarterback, and that's Greasy.
Let's see what the champion Redskins are up to now. Here's Commissioner Pete Rozelle. He has the card on the Redskins selection in the first round.
And Unitas.
The Super Bowl champion Washington Redskins complete the first round with their choice of cornerback Darrell Green, Texas A&I.
Thanks, Bobby.
Leading off the second round, Baltimore Colts.
Okay, so the Redskins take Green of Texas A&M. And before we wrap up the Marino situation, I think you have to point out, and after covering him for 4 years, the fact that the people that play with him, the people that work with him, have a great deal of respect for him. And he is a competitor, and he's the kind of young man who you feel is going to make the best shot that he can out of what he has. Maybe he should have taken the USFL offer that he had, as it turns out.
Well, it'll be interesting to see now the contract negotiations, not only with Marino, with Miami, but with all the first-round picks. So it's going to be something to follow as well.
Anybody interested in Darrell Green? Bobby Beathard was hoping he'd be around. Says he's one of the 2 sleepers in the whole draft. I won't tell you the other one because, you know, it was in confidence, but he said people are turned off because he's a little shrimp, 5'7.5", 5'8", but I think they're projecting him into that hot corner, the left corner of the Jarvis White boys.
And Bobby Beathard, he's one of those guys. He has a feeling about a player, and very rarely is he wrong. One note on Don Mosbar, quickly. 2 Southern Cal offensive linemen drafted in the first round. In the last 5 years, USC has had 7 offensive linemen taken on the first round. 5 years in a row, they've had at least 1, and a total of 7 in the last 5 years.
All right, so the Washington Redskins, the Super Bowl champions, have come home with their selection, their 3rd first-round pick since 1968. They haven't had too many of them, but they've got their first 3 picks this time around. Let's take a look at round 1 in conclusion.
This is the way to the freedom I've only dreamed of. These are the wings I was never allowed to try. Come closer and hear me. There's a world out there to see. I say this day belongs to me. This is the door that I've waited so long to open. This is the day when I'm given the...
In approximately 3 hours and 13 minutes, we continue on ESPN. The second round began as quick as you could say. Jack Robinson, Baltimore going for Vernon Maxwell, a linebacker out of Arizona State. And Houston has selected Harvey Salem, the offensive tackle out of California, 6'7", 270. First 2 selections. Denver is up, and again in the second round, still 15 minutes per selection. But let's backtrack a bit to pick number 26 when the Raiders made a safe selection in terms of maybe thinking what they might do. Don Mosbar, tackle out of USC, and you look at him rating out to an 18-9. John Robinson said he was one of the greatest USC tackles ever in his reign there.
He knows, and he's coached many, many superior offensive football players. They're somehow... The athletic ability in the Southern California area is so great, and they pick these people up, follow them when they're sophomores in high school, through their high school career, and then hopefully get them to come to either Southern California or UCLA.
And he's a 4-year starter, which is a rarity, especially in the offensive line. You've got to open those holes and pull out for the tailbacks. And 4 years as a starter for Don Mosbar.
Especially at USC, where you know that they stockpile those excellent players. You know, you used to be able to say this about USC or the Pac-8 or the Pac-10, that if you come and you're an offensive lineman out of USC, that you are already accomplished at playing the pro-style offense. Of course, as leagues like the Big Ten and others now go to more pro-style, it's not so much, all right, if he doesn't come from the West Coast, he's going to have to learn how to pass block. But still, teams like the Raiders always like the Pac-8, now Pac-10 offensive line.
And Mosbar will be blocking for his former teammate at SC, Marcus Allen, unless a deal is struck. We've heard Allen's name mentioned, but probably now, and we're to the second round, it will not occur. Now, Miami picking right after the Raiders, the next to last pick in the first round, went for Dan Marino. Marino's stock had dropped precipitously with Pittsburgh's season this past year and a very poor senior year. What his mental attitude will be going into the Miami camp may be more important than what his physical attributes are.
I would hope and believe that Dan will calm down considerably. He was considered at the start of the year perhaps the best college quarterback. People talking about Heisman for him in spite of Herschel Walker. He's got all of the physical tools. As a junior, he played a magnificent Sugar Bowl game. He's proven that he's got the ability, and as you say, it's mainly mental, but I think that the coaching he will receive and the calmness of his development, he'll make it.
He threw 37 touchdown passes as a junior, but he threw 23 interceptions that year, 22 interceptions this past year. In fact, more interceptions, 5 more interceptions than touchdowns as a senior. The Sugar Bowl MVP from '81. but going next to last in the first round, and a 3.5 on a read. That is one of the lower scouting numbers we've seen in this first round.
Well, that's because of all the interceptions that he threw. That is for sure. He is the pocket-type passer. Don Strock will not be around forever. David Woodley is the different type of quarterback, probably, that is more mobile out there. But Marino with the long downfield arm, maybe they hope that with a little guidance, Paul brings up a point, gee, who's going to give him the guidance down there? I'm not sure. But if he settles down, that he can be the Strock-type passer, and they would still have, well, they can't call it Wood Strock anymore. We'll have to think up a name in the next hour or 6. But it gives them the different look at quarterback. So Miami did say they